In 1985, Columbus, Ohio served as the unlikely starting point for the exposure of a globally integrated shadow economy. At the center of the local network was Arthur L. Shapiro. He was a quiet, intensely private tax attorney who managed the ledgers for Leslie Wexner's rapidly expanding retail empire, The Limited. On March 6, 1985, Shapiro was killed in a professional, mob-style execution. The hit occurred exactly 1 day before he was scheduled to appear before an Internal Revenue Service grand jury to testify regarding his use of questionable tax shelters. Investigating the murder, local police discovered an immediate anomaly. The expansion of Wexner's retail empire was not a standard story of corporate growth. It was deeply entangled with organized crime. To maintain its supply chain dominance, the corporation relied on Walsh Trucking, a logistics company that multiple law enforcement agencies identified as being controlled by associates of the Genovese crime family. Shapiro held the financial keys to this entire arrangement. His death acted as a firewall, shielding the syndicate's violent, mob-backed logistical network from a federal forensic audit. If the IRS had successfully subpoenaed Shapiro, their accountants would have traced domestic retail revenue past the trucking lines and directly into a network of illegal offshore bank accounts. To hide this capital, the syndicate utilized the Huntington Center office building in Columbus. Using the same suites on the 16th and 37th floors, billionaire investment vehicles and unregistered shell companies could operate alongside the legal counsel that defended them. This proximity allowed the syndicate to move capital through the same channels used for local political bribes. Unregistered developer partnerships could fund the private business ventures of the city council president, while the developers sought favorable zoning and annexation approvals. Because this entire network relied on absolute secrecy, the murder of Shapiro served as a necessary system defense. It severed the legal bridge that would have allowed federal investigators to follow the money into the offshore world. In 1986, the syndicate adapted to the Shapiro vulnerability. They moved away from local tax attorneys and handed absolute power of attorney over the retail empire to a new operative, Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein operated far outside the norms of a traditional accountant. He functioned as a financial bagman, utilizing skills learned from international arms dealers in the mechanics of laundering and sovereign wealth manipulation. Simultaneously, the syndicate upgraded its physical supply chain. They transitioned from domestic trucking to massive trans-Pacific aviation logistics. The retail empire's primary carrier was now Southern Air Transport. This was a known CIA front company, active in the Iran-Contra weapons smuggling network, and it relocated its world headquarters to Ohio to service the contract. Driven by the need for impenetrable logistics, the corporate retail operation effectively merged its standard freight requirements with state-sponsored paramilitary assets. To manage the resulting capital, Epstein utilized the highly secretive offshore banking notes of the Caribbean and Bermuda. Epstein engineered exclusive offshore trust companies to park the Ohio syndicate's retail wealth in jurisdictions that sat entirely outside U.S. sovereign oversight. Epstein moved this money into the exact same banking institutions used by his mentors, Saudi intelligence middleman Adnan Khashoggi and British defense broker Douglas Leese. These brokers were moving capital from the multi-billion-dollar Al-Yamama fighter jet deal and the illegal weapons proceeds of Iran-Contra. Inside these accounts, the distinct streams of capital collided. Retail tax evasion, mob-controlled trucking profits, and illegal sovereign weapons funds were washed together into a single unified pool of hidden wealth. By utilizing the same banking conduits, these disparate entities constructed a closed-loop shadow economy that operated beneath the surface of the conventional global market. While the syndicate believed their offshore accounts were impenetrable, the international intelligence community had already altered the technological landscape. This shift was driven by Promise, a revolutionary database software stolen from its creators by the NSA and the Israeli Mossad for a highly classified surveillance initiative. Unlike legacy systems, Promise could integrate entirely incompatible international mainframe architectures. This allowed operators to track and analyze complex global wire transfers across borders in real time. Agencies hard-coded an espionage backdoor into the code and used corporate cutouts, like British tycoon Robert Maxwell, to covertly sell the compromised software to the offshore clearinghouses the shadow economy was using. Through the deployment of Promise, every wire transfer moving through these shadow networks became visible to allied intelligence agencies. By the mid-1980s, the NSA and Mossad held the specific transaction IDs and offshore account numbers for every major figure in this network, from weapons brokers to corporate executives. Rather than shutting these accounts down, agencies maintained the visibility as a source of compromising material used to guarantee the cooperation of financial and political elites. The murder of Arthur Shapiro in Ohio removed the localized threat of a domestic audit, but it pushed the syndicate into a digitized trap. By moving their money into intelligence-managed offshore trusts, the network traded its analog legal liability for invisible oversight. This merger of corporate logistics and total surveillance established a system of blackmail capitalism. The shadow economy allowed elites to hide their wealth, while the intelligence state used that visibility to ensure those elites remained assets of the state.